Hello world. Today I will be making another reaction video to the content of Heavyweights Light Feels when I am personally called out in one of these videos. I do feel an obligation to respond because it is essentially the only way for me to do so at this point. Um, and as usual, I will provide links to the research and resources that I will use to make this video. So to get us started, we will be watching a video by the YouTube content creator known as Heavyweights Light Feels. And this video is titled Moving the Goalposts, a Common Leftist Tactic.
What's good? What's good? Let me know if you have ever dealt with this experience. You are having a conversation with somebody on a subject you disagree with. You make a statement. X is happening. They rebuttal and say, no, X is not happening. And then when you provide them with proof, with evidence that X is in fact happening, they then backtrack and say, and begin to change the definition of things. They begin to deflect from the subject. They redirect, they attack. They do not acknowledge the fact that you have just given them direct evidence supporting your claim. Let me know if you've experienced that. That is called moving the goalposts. That is a very, very, very common leftist tactic. As I often say, they do not act in good faith.
Yeah, so he's bringing up the good faith, bad faith thing again. And at this point, it almost seems sort of meaningless to me when he does this, because he usually displays a clear misunderstanding of the concept. So I will provide a link to a debate video that was made by our favorite YouTube content creator, Vosh, just to do a little bit of clout chasing myself. But Andrew actually does a pretty good job here of defining moving the goalposts. But for context, let's see what Wikipedia has to say. So, moving the goalposts is a metaphor derived from goal-based sports that means to change the rule or criterion of a process or competition while it is still in progress in such a way that the new goal offers one side an advantage or disadvantage. So I guess we will see if he is able to show that this is in fact a common leftist tactic.
I would say most of them do not act in good faith out of the fact that they're sheer midwits. And if you don't know what a midwit is, maybe I'll link a really good video by Mentis Wave, who goes over what a midwit is, but essentially a person of average intelligence that thinks they're above average intelligence. I'm not a midwit because I know I'm of average intelligence.
Yeah, I know that I am of average intelligence as well. And unfortunately, this is like the closest semblance of research that Andrew provides in this video, or really any of his other videos. And unfortunately, it appears that it is just another example of him clout chasing, because Mentis Wave is a YouTube creator with almost 30,000 subscribers. And I did actually watch that entire video where Mentis Wave delineates the difference between midwits and average Joes. And after watching it, I definitely think that I am probably more of an average Joe than a midwit. And it probably says more about Andrew if he thinks otherwise.
So I am, yeah, anyways, moving on. Okay. Let me provide a real life example of how I have experienced someone moving the goalposts. In my conversations with Kyle playlist, I don't remember which video, but I do vividly remember we were having an argument or a discussion on equity and how equity is this huge new buzzword that people are talking about, and we should not be building policy with equity in mind. And he said, nobody is talking about equity. He said that. And I was so blown away by that, that within seconds, I was able to pull up a clip of Kamala Harris literally talking about equity.
Yeah, so as we will see, that is definitely not what I said. And I did watch all of our conversations. So I will show the clip that I believe he is referring to. For full context, I think anybody who's actually watching this should probably watch this whole video, even though it's almost 3 hours long. To have full context, watch the whole thing, not just the 5 minutes that I'm gonna show here.
Oh, dude, wow, yeah. Because this is a big thing that, yeah, once again, I'm gonna say this real quick, but I really don't want to talk about this right now. I think this is a whole different video. I don't know anybody who's arguing for equality of outcome. All I can find examples of is people advocating for equality of opportunity. But yeah, I don't really, we can flesh that one out later. It seemed like earlier you were like advocating for positions to reduce inequality. Just inequality, like wealth inequality, especially like the fact that there's so many, the elites, the rich, all that. But also I can understand advocating for a reduction of inequality and still acknowledging hierarchies, but it's I don't, once again, it's like I don't know a whole lot of people who are trying to get rid of hierarchies. That they exist. I literally learned about them in my education class. Hierarchies, archetypes, so things like they exist. They're just common human features, and like not just human. Obviously, they transcend. But once again, like
this is
I don't want to use the word boogeyman.
Well, no. So we can loop in the social engineering component to this, because I'm really willing to bet that your social media feeds skew left and mine skew right. That being said, I get the highlights of the insanity from the left, and you get the highlights of the insanity from the right. So we can give each other examples of the insanity of what we perceive to be the other's general direction of leaning. But if you and I want to collaborate and move forward right now, can you say that you support equality of outcome or equality of opportunity over one or the other?
Why would I? Once again, I think this is, I hate using these words with you, a sort of straw man, because I don't.
It's an easy question. It's an intellectual, easy question.
Who is arguing for equality of outcome?
I can fucking give you so many examples. Why are you refusing to answer the simple question?
What's the question? I'm sorry.
Do you support equality of outcome or equality of opportunity?
Quality of opportunity.
Boom. There we go.
So once again, do you think there's a bunch of people out there supporting equality of outcome?
Did you mean to say equity?
No.
I believe
Quality of
that.
outcome, quality of
Hold on,
opportunity.
let me. I believe that there are a lot of people out there trying to push both agendas.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think one is more right than the other.
Once again, I don't know who.
And that is a result of our ever shrinking echo chambers of social media because shit
Once
is
again,
fucking toxic.
Yeah, I don't know who's arguing for equality of outcome.
What example of evidence would you accept?
Anybody saying that they're advocating for the equality of outcome? Like anybody?
In what format? Or I'm talking an academic journal. I'm talking about something certified from like the Smithsonian, like something from what website would be sufficient?
Somebody says it in a speech, and it's like on
Kamala fucking Harris. Boom.
Okay, thank you. She didn't.
She did. Google it. Like,
Yes.
Okay, let's keep talking. I'm gonna look for it while you entertain the people.
I'm gonna make a drink. I believe what you're looking up right now, she said the exact word she uses is equitable outcomes.
Are we really gonna get semantical? This is why I get mad at you, because you're being dense, because you're letting the fucking propaganda trick you.
Yeah. So at no point in this conversation do I move the goalposts. And unfortunately, he resorts to using an ad hominem there at the end by calling me dense, and then gets a little, just a little conspiratorial. But to go for fuller context and to go another layer deeper into the inception, I'm going to show the clip that I believe he is referring to in this conversation.
We also launched the Health Equity Task Force to make sure tests and vaccines and other resources are being distributed equitably. You know, when we look at Black history, we know that so much of the fight, especially during the Civil Rights Movement, and of course before, has been about equality. You know, we often talk about the place that housed one of the people who for me was a hero and really was a beacon of what can be, Thurgood Marshall, and the house that Thurgood Marshall lived in, called the United States Supreme Court. And on those marble walls is etched equal justice under law. We have always fought for equality, but now we are also talking much more rightly about equity, understanding that we must be clear-eyed about the fact that yes, we want everyone to get an equal amount. That sounds right, but not everyone starts out from the same place. Some people start out on first base, some people start out on third base. And if the goal is truly about equality, it has to be about a goal of saying everybody should end up in the same place. And since we didn't start in the same place, some folks might need more.
So, to play the semantics game, clearly Kamala is advocating for policies based on equity, but I really never said that she wasn't, and he just continues to convolute the conversation by equating the concepts of equity and equality of outcome.
And then he proceeded to kind of change definitions and to deflect and misdirect, redirect, instead of just saying, oh, you're right. People are talking about equity.
Yeah. So this is just another misinterpretation of our conversation where he equates the idea of moving the goalposts with being unable to admit when you're wrong. And these may be similar concepts, but they are not the same. And in every conversation we've had, in person or online, I usually gladly admit when I am wrong.
And I want to do a whole nother video talking about kind of the different segments of the left, because there are absolutely different segments of the left, just like there are different segments of the right. And what I think the average leftist maybe doesn't understand is that there is a small, loud, obnoxious vocal segment that is sort of driving the whole train of the left. And the people who don't want to be conservatives, but also don't want to rock the boat on the left, to just kind of let them get away with it. And that's because of the culture wars. And that's essentially what's happening, is there are a whole lot of people who are like, I don't want to be labeled a conservative, but I also don't want to rock the boat over here. I disagree with a lot of what's going on. I had another example. Oh, yes. Okay, let's think of another example. The whole porn in schools thing. I think Kyle had made a video refuting one of my videos saying that it's not happening. It is not happening. And he bangs the table because what's something about like when the facts aren't on your side, bang the table or whatever. Anyway.
Yeah, so this is unfortunately not a new low for Andrew either, because I have never banged my fists on the table in any of the conversations that we've had, or even the other content that I've created. And I'm pretty sure Andrew knows this. That's not really my style.
Yes. It is totally happening. There was a clip of this dad. There's a lot of clips of dads and moms reading in school board meetings content literally from books that are in the schools. And so then they'll change the definition of porn, or they'll change the scope of these books and they'll say that these are necessary educational materials. So again, moving the goalpost, very common leftist tactic.
Yeah, so here he's saying that books that were previously considered okay should now be considered pornography, and ironically moving the goalposts, because the books that are being banned are books that have traditionally been part of public school curriculum.
And going back to talking about that small minority segment of the leftist group that's loud and obnoxious and pushing the whole train, they are the Marxists, the neo-Marxists, whatever you want to call them. They are the group that are trying to normalize the whole minor attracted person agenda. And I want to take a brief detour to talk about my first sort of interaction with wokeness and wokeism.
Yeah, so unfortunately, his detours are never brief, as we will see. But now he's saying that Marxists are pushing the minor attracted persons agenda. The MAP agenda is being pushed by Marxists, is just like so far into conspiracy land that it's hard to make sense of what he's saying here.
Because it's connected and related. About 10 years ago, prior to 10 years ago, I didn't realize how bad it was. Like I knew that the institutions were left leaning, and I knew that like it was kind of the edgy thing to be left and democratic, and that conservatives were old, stodgy, whatever. But I didn't know how bad it was in the institutions and how bad the ideology actually is. I was in a Facebook group 10 years ago, a long time ago, called like Imgur or Imager Fit. So it was like this fitness group where people just connected, and it was really cool. You know, they'd share pictures and workout tips and routines, and it was really cool until I got kicked out. But that's a different story because I had a dissenting opinion.
Yeah, people on the right love to say they are being excluded because of their dissenting opinions, when it is clearly because of their obvious refusal to comply with simple societal norms.
Before I got kicked out, I had a conversation with someone and actually built like a rapport and a friendship with this gentleman. He was a gay gentleman who always, who was, is it predatory to solicit nude photos from somebody multiple times after they've asked you not to? I think that's kind of predatory, right? But that's what this gentleman did. But I was compassionate toward him and, kind of brushed it aside and wanted to still try to develop an actual connection with this individual because I was curious about their philosophical ideals. And over time, they conveyed to me that they believe we should abolish the age of consent laws, because ultimately one of the fundamentalist views, and this he referenced Foucault, Michel Foucault, French postmodern philosopher, who absolutely supported the abolition of the age of consent laws. He himself was a pedo. And that's what this segment of the left is attempting to do on a structural level, is to dissolve the boundaries of society, and all boundaries. The dissolution of boundaries will create this human utopian society where there are no inhibitions, and it's insane. And so he justified pedophilia to me, and he had commented, "Don't you want to be able to have sex with 16-year-old girls, Andrew?" And I was like, no, I can barely stand the mental capacity of 25-year-old women these days. Like, and if you're like, yeah, I just cannot engage in dumb. Yeah, I don't like women who are dumb. And so that's half of why I struggle with dating.
Yeah, so I think there are probably reasons that go beyond the idea of the stupidity of women, which is an incredibly misogynistic idea, that probably hinder your dating. For the last 2 minutes, Andrew has basically said that the left is pushing pedophilia, citing Foucault's advocacy for the abolition of the age of consent. Calling him a pedo for making this argument is a bit of a stretch, in my opinion. And in my research, I found nothing on Foucault actually being a pedophile.
Because dumb and pretty, it's like, no, I'm not interested in you. Anyways, okay. And he justified this, he sent me some links to some books by Foucault about power and how institutions have power and that the proletariat need to take back the power. And the small minority of the left, the sort of radical Marxists who do exist, they're driving the larger ship. And because the rest of the left does not want to rock the boat, that's why they're allowing and enabling a lot of this to happen.
Yeah, so as an avowed leftist, I really do wish that Marxists were in charge and driving the ship. But unfortunately, they are not.
I guess maybe I don't need to do that other video talking about the segments of the left, because that's essentially it. There are some like true just people who are like for the workers and for unions and for the environment. And that's fair. Those are all cool, fair positions to have. But what they don't realize is that they're being undermined or used as props, political props, to obtain power to ultimately implement an authoritarian communist state. And this is something that they've done over time, like look into the Bolshevik Revolution or the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where who was it? Was it Mao who used the youth, who just brainwashed the youth? Interesting. Kind of like how they're brainwashing our youth. My generation, I'm a millennial, 35. I don't know what happened to a lot of my friends in the last.
Yeah, so this is where I really wish Andrew would do a little bit of research and maybe even provide some resources to compare what is happening in America to the Bolshevik Revolution or the Chinese Cultural Revolution. Just shows how little research he actually does. The Bolshevik Revolution as a subsect of the Russian Revolution is not comparable. The Cultural Revolution as a subsect of the Chinese Civil War is not comparable. So his attempt to label all of this as Marxism is clear proof that he is the midwit in this situation.
20 years, like I don't like that's partially why I'm a little crazy. It's because I've watched them just become zombies, ideological zombies. Thank you, Mentis Wave, for that term in that video. That's a great YouTube channel. I'll link them because he makes fucking fantastic content. Let me wrap up the video. Common leftist tactic: moving the goalposts. Let me know if you have ever been in a conversation where you felt like that has happened, because it's probably been happening to you and it's intentional. And we need to fight back. Thank you for listening. Much love.
All right, so as evidenced, I do not move the goalposts in any of our conversations. So I don't really think Andrew has shown that this is a common leftist tactic. And I will provide, once again, links to the research and resources that I am using to make this argument. And the only research that Andrew provides is the link to the Mentis Wave video. So as always, folks, just remember that knowledge is power.